right, another beautiful day here, the month of April, and I'm glad that you're joining us on Morning Prime. This is the 2nd of April, 2024. You had a lovely restorative weekend after the Easter holidays, and after having a reflective moment over the long weekend, I hope you are energized, ready to face this week that the good Lord has afforded us. Let's see how the weather will be today. All right, and this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Dailies this morning. Ruto's big silence as healthcare system collapses. This is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning. It's a healthcare crisis. President Ruto has not spoken about the ongoing crisis after dispatching his chief of staff to help end the doctor strike. 2 weeks later, even lab technicians are about to follow clinicians and doctors in downing tools. When will the government and the unions find a common ground to save Kenyans from suffering? That is the abiding question. You have a story on page 2 and 3 of the Standard this morning. And also still on the front page of the Standard, looking at the teaser succession fight could kill ODM. Raila warns that story is tucked away, well fleshed out for you on page 7 of the Standard today. MPs reproach government on school funds. This is on page 5 of the Standard. All set for Japan used car auction. Remember, that story is on the business pages of the Standard today on page 27. Why there is no other like Safari Rally. 38, 39 is where it's all splashed for you, laid out for you to just get all the gritty details as far as Safari Rally went down over the weekend as well. Orphanages, the children no one wants. That is on page 10 and 11 of the Standard today. Holiday, beware if you ask your child to work. A lawyer has moved to court seeking orders to compel parents and guardians to only give adult jobs to those above 18. That is 18 years. He wants minors allowed to learn and play, and this story is on page 4 of the Standard this morning. Also, get all the wires as far as financial standard is concerned. Tough going for Nigerian lenders in Kenya. Read all about it inside the Standard. Also, you have NIA there in the Standard. You can get all the wires as far as book review is concerned, and this is all about the children as well. And during their holidays, that can really come in handy for them as well. The Daily Nation looks like this. Big divider over NADCO report is a splash on the front page of the Daily Nation today. Kenya Kwanza and Azimio coalition team. War of words. Let me try and zoom in. We can read together. It says, even as President William Ruto and his Kenya Kwanza alliance named their team of 3 to the bipartisan panel that will evaluate the 2022 electoral process, some in the Azimio camp are accusing the government side of a plot to sabotage the full implementation of the Bomas report through a court process, quote unquote. But is this really the case? That's a probing question. You have the story well laid out for you on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. And some of the faces here, as we can see, Kenya Kwanza had not really come up with their team, as far as also the IBC evaluation report of 2022 elections is concerned. And we can see this is a team that everyone was waiting for. We have Cecilia Ngetich and Dr. Linda Musumba, also Ndegwa Wahome. This is part of Kenya Kwanza team that will probe or evaluate the 2022 general election. And from the Azimio coalition, they had proffered their team, led by Amos Wako there, Judith Pareno and Julius Geraini. All this story, you can follow it on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah promises document will be implemented in full, and that is all about politics. Also, the sidebar, motorsport cruise tech stock as dust settles on iconic Safari Rally, as Kalle Rovanperä of Finland returns home a hero. The FIA Observer manufacturers, drivers and fans are taking stock of the just-ended competition. That is on page 38 and 39 of the Daily Nation. How 400,000 shillings power bill wrecked retirees' business. Paul Mwangi, with 65, set up a 10 million shillings edible oil business at his home in 2019. But in 2021, he received an alleged erroneous power bill, and then everything started going downhill. You can read about his frustration on page 10 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also remember, Healthy Nation comes in handy for you inside the Daily Nation today. Raila reads Riot Act amid ODM succession battle. And it says ODM leader Raila Odinga has convened a crucial meeting of the party's top organ tomorrow to discuss the modalities of conducting its elections and to address the complex succession politics threatening to split the party over his planned exit. Mr. Odinga is expected to chair the party's Central Management Committee meeting at Chungwa House amid uncertainty over planned elections this month and feuding results from his planned exit from the party's top leadership should he secure the chairmanship of the African Union Commission. This is all fleshed out for you on page 6 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, I'll visit Joey in prison and forgive him. Monica Kimani's father now says, and you can read about all the bishops that is proffering a hat of forgiveness on page 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. This is how it looks. Let's see what the Star is holding for us, and this is what you're waking up to the front page of the Star this morning. Raila desperate bid to defuse ODM is what is holding as a splash this morning. And it says, options among the radical proposals is a push to have him remain party leader. That you have it inside the Daily Nation on page 4 and 5 of today's publication. that is the Star should say. Odinga is also considering to have Oparanya lead party deputized by Joho and Wandai. And this is some of the sentiments. Just to read some of them, we have quickly for Oparanya saying, there is no automatic successor, but people must vote through the existing structures. We cannot dismiss the possibility that Raila can also name one. Also, we have what Hassan Joho said. There are people in ODM who are calling me saying I'm going too fast and that I should go for talks. I'm not talking to anyone. We will talk on the ballot box when it comes. This is ODM Deputy Party Leader Hassan Joho saying that. Also, Opiyo Wandayi, Minority Leader, saying nothing stops me from presenting my name for such a position if it were to fall vacant. An eventuality that I don't foresee now and in the near future. Also, we have John Berdy saying, who's the ODM chairman, I appeal to our people, those who want to lead and those who simply want the party to remain strong, to exercise caution, restraint and moderation. This is what they said. You can follow the story inside the Star this morning. Let's see what the teaser is having for us. Nothing much to really report this morning. But how plastics are fueling impotence in the country, that is another story. And also 30 years not death for man who killed neighbor. And this is all about people who often make threats that they really are keen to see through, but not in the case of Joseph Douglas. You can read about his story there on page 3. No time for actually give you all the gritty details. We have a story on page 3. And triple burden, Kenya's lifespan drops for first time in 2 decades. Life expectancy in Kenya has fallen by 1 year for the first time in 2 decades. The decline was revealed in the world's most comprehensive analysis of health indicators known as the Global Burden of Disease Study. Researchers attributed the reduction to COVID-19 and its effects. They also released new results of life expectancy at birth in all 47 counties. And if you're living in Embu, Meru there, life expectancy also has dropped there by a year. Right, so life expectancy there is around 67. Read all about it inside the Star this morning. All right, let's see what the People Daily is holding for us. Raila turns his guns on courts. That is a splash you're waking up to on the front page of the People Daily this morning. Tough call. Former Premier accuses courts of being used by executive after they declared NADCO report unlawful in what could open new battle with judiciary. You have the story on page 4 of the People Daily. When you are your own obstacle is another story on page 20. And People Daily, Wanyakango job is under threat. You can read all about it on page 12 of the People Daily today. CS Korea is about turn on fake fertilizer. Get all the revelations there on page 6 of the People Daily this morning. This is what you're waking up to. And the new face Nairobi's magical Uhuru Park. Right? All spruced up, looking good. And you can read all about it inside the People Daily this morning. Bunge limeenda. Raia jipangeni. Bunge limeenda. That's what it's saying. It is gone. Raila naye kijanja amefungwa kinywa kutokana na azma yake ya kuwania wadhifa wa AUC. Bunge la sasa limegeuka kuwa kikaragosi na muhuri wa rais, hivyo kuidhinisha amri zote kutoka Ikulu. Hata upinzani pia umekata tamaa, haujiwezi. Raia wameachwa kama mayatima bila mtu wa kuwatetea. Right, and this is a story and you know about it. Bunge limeenda. Sasa tujipange tuko peke yetu sasa. This is what Taifa Leo is holding for us. Babake Monica ataka kukutana na Joy Jelani. And you can read all about it on page 3 of Taifa Leo. Liverpool sasa yapigwa upatu kunyakua EPL. You can follow the story on page 20 of Taifa Leo. This is how it looks. Also, Walevi Nyeri watorokea Kirinyaga. Yeah, this is crossing borders to get your test of the liquor. And leteni madeni ya kahawa tuyafute, waziri yatangaza. This is Chelugui. You can read all about it on page 4 of Taifa Leo. Meli yenye makazi ya watu kutoa Kenya. You can read all about it also on page 5 of Taifa Leo this morning. Let's see what we have on the front page of The Citizen. Second bar BRT operator set to bring in 177 buses. The second operator of the Dar es Salaam Bus Rapid Transit Fast Phase routes will bring at least 177 buses as part of efforts to improve efficiency on the network, according to Dar es Salaam Rapid Transit Agency. You can follow the story inside the Citizen this morning, and also the untapped potential in Rwanda's space economy. All about it inside the New Times as well. The space industry holds immense economic potential for Rwanda. Rwanda cannot carry DR Congo's burden. This is what Kagame is saying, and you can be seeing here making that pronouncement, especially the insecurity in the east of the country. Kagame noted this during an interview with Radio 10 and Royal FM aired on Monday, April the 1st. You can follow all that inside the New Times if you're waking up in Rwanda this morning. And the East African this week is holding this splash for us. Why broke Air Tanzania buys more aircraft. Why broke Air Tanzania buys more aircraft. That is the story. Uganda set to import oil via Kenya from May. That's spot that we had with Uganda has been resolved. Announcement comes as a relief following months of tension after Nairobi denied UNOC a license. That is a story that you want to follow inside the East African. Red alert over Sudan war crimes. Right lobbies have flagged killings, displacements, starvation of civilians, and this is all carried out on page 8 of the East African this morning. And Kenya-Tanzania solved trade rows. Teams have ironed out 14 issues, but 2 remain. That is on page 3. You can read all about it inside the latest publication this week of the East African. All right, China Daily. Beijing, Jakarta to deepen ties. President hailed substantive progress, highlights all-round strategic cooperation. That is inside the China Daily today. China's sharing of growth has global impact, and also tighter U.S. chip curbs prompting concerns. And you can read all about it inside the China Daily. This is the latest copy of The Economist. The AI doctor will see you eventually. This is the latest development as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. Trump and the world. Copulent consultancies, the triple shock facing Europe, and Tactica loses its brrr. And you can read all about it inside The Economist as well, as I put it. And the week better off. Trump's claim that the US was thriving 4 years ago. Are they better off? The likelihood of him coming back also is imminent. And ignoring the ISIS threats. This is all about Vladimir Putin and the main story of the terrorist attack in Moscow. Can Boeing be fixed? That is all about Boeing, and also the recent resignation of the CEO. That is a story that you want to follow inside the week, the latest publication. Federer's joyful retirement on page 10 as well. I shall be showing you much of the editorial cartoons much later in the course of the program. But for now, let's put this horse into a full run by, of course, unveiling our guests this morning, just getting introductory remarks from them, how the weekend was, how was the Easter as well, and to get also a feel of how the week will be as well. Allow me to introduce this morning. I'm holding court with Dr. Otena Molo, who is a senior counsel, also member of parliament, Rarieda. We're joined by also Okongo Mogiri, who is a senior counsel, senator of Nyamira. Also joined by the senator of Tana River. This is Danson Mungatana. And we're eagerly waiting to be joined by Tabitha Mutinda, who is a nominated senator. And we continue with the conversation apace. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Right, let me just begin with you, Otena Molo. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. How was your Easter?
Easter was good, prayerful.
Prayerful.
Yes, we, as you know, Easter is a session of great prayers.
Yes.
But it was also a football weekend. And some of us support teams like my team of choice is Arsenal.
Yes.
And we were not quite happy that we lost the leadership of the EPL.
To Liverpool.
Yes, to Liverpool. But it was a very tough match with Man City. But we are confident and hopeful we will be resuming our rightful position at the top of the table.
Oh, consolation for you. I think you say the prayers. It was a prayerful. It must have been praying honestly while watching that particular game. Anyway, so this will be such a long wait for you until maybe next year.
Well, we're still hopeful. We're still hopeful.
But there are other tournaments in between. We'll see how that really fares as well. But
Yes.
thank you for joining us on your Easter. You went to church, I presume?
Yes, I'm Catholic, so we do the traditional Catholic masses over Easter. So, yes.
Fantastic. Let's hear from Congo Mogini, who was missing in action, busy in Nyamira. How was your weekend? How was Easter?
Oh, I mean, the weekend was fine. Easter was quiet. I mean, I'm not a Catholic myself. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. That is the religion that is predominant in Nyamira. But as a Christian, I attend all churches, including the Catholic Church. So it was a good beginning of our recess to rest a bit and catch up with the people of Nyamira. We also suffered the indignity of being ranked
We will come there. We will come there. We will come there.
as one of the most corrupt counties.
You're leading.
We seem to be leading, I think, together with the CIA, where it is said 100% of the respondents are of the view that before you bribe, you will not get any service from the county government of Nyamira and others. And we also had a good entertainment of football from the game of Man City and Arsenal. And give credit to Liverpool. I think they are now in the driver's seat. Seems like unless there will be some shock somewhere, I think they look to be destined to be champions this time around. I think they stand a very good chance of winning the EPL. 4 points with 9 games to go. It seems like it's theirs to lose now. Yeah.
All right. Let's hear from Danson Mugatana. Welcome. I know you were also representing Kenya at the parliamentary parliament.
The African Parliament.
The African, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. We also had a very good Easter, a very quiet and church and family. We just came back from a session of the Pan-African Parliament. This is a parliament that was set up. You see, the executive is the African heads of state, and then there is a parliament for all Africa, where 55 nations gather together every year 3 times, and we basically send 5 representatives. In Kenya here, we send 3 from the National Assembly and 2 from the Senate. I head that delegation on behalf of Kenya, so we are 55 times 5 members of parliament who sit to debate things to do with the continent. We sit in South Africa for 3 sessions every year. So this was also another session we've just concluded, and we thank God that the thinking is the same still amongst African nations, that we should push for one united voice in terms of laws, in terms of the executive action. The journey is still long, but it's opening up. As you are all aware, we have started the African Continental Trade Agreement, and this is one step, because we believe that people always go ahead of government. So even colonization, trade came before government came. So the trade within Africa is one of the targeted areas that we want to increase trade across the continent. Specifically for Kenya, I have said here before, we are doing quite well because we have a net increase in terms of trade with our neighbors within East Africa. However, although Kenya is a giant within East Africa, when you come down to South Africa, we have a very big trade imbalance. South Africa is doing 159 billion last year. Kenya was doing 39 billion. Even with the opening up of the visa regime, The funny thing was that a lot of Kenyans during the 2023 December holidays took advantage of the visa-free regime to go for holiday in South Africa. And few of them are coming to this side. This is a challenge, so we need more Kenyans also to look at opportunities in the south so that we can bridge the gap, also increase the trade between our two countries. So here we are, making steps slow but sure. And we are expecting now a state visit to South Africa. And you know, state visits have very huge impact. The last one, Ramaphosa, was in Kenya in 2022. So this one will be President Ruto's first in South Africa. And we hope when two presidents come on a state visit, there's normally a lot of agreements that are done. So we hope this will open up space of trade between Kenya and South Africa. And my appeal, let me just use this opportunity to ask more Kenyans to come down to the south. The opportunities are many. And people there, I don't think are as fast as the Nairobians here. So I think Nairobians and the people of Kenya, there are opportunities. Just pack your bags, it's not very expensive. Travel south and see what you can do. I was very impressed to see a few members of our Kenyan communities, particularly Somali communities, when we were meeting at the airport, telling me, we have come, unajua siku hizi hakuna mambo ya visa, so we have come to look and things are looking good. And getting reports like that, I wish to appeal to the rest of us to also see what we can do in the south so that we can reduce this balance of trade deficit that is there. 159 to 139, 159 to 39 is a very big one. And I think government has done its part, because you see under the Guided Trade Initiative, Kenya and South Africa have agreed that certain goods can be imported without any taxation. So like our coffee now is cheaper, our tea is cheaper, our pyrethrum, so we need to take advantage. I trust those listening to me and are in that area will take advantage. So we are back to the normal situation, and we thank God for the Easter and the rains that have come.
Especially our human resource in South Africa is a sterling one.
Yes.
When it comes to services, I think they are leading there. But
even in government, you know, we are.
Even in government.
Yeah, we find quite a number of Kenyans inside there. So we trust God that others will move there with this free trade.
Xenophobia notwithstanding, because there's always that fear and trepidation.
You are right. You are right. It is there.
As you say, it's a free visa entry. People might also feel like, oh, you're coming to take our resources.
You are right, but
take our women as well.
Yeah, you're right. But the funny thing is, when you look at the whole issue of xenophobia, it is their immediate neighbors who are badly affected by that. They tend to think it is the Zimbabweans and Zambians who are taking their jobs, not too far away. So, okay, of course, the incidences have reduced, but yeah, that fear is there. But I mean, if you want to succeed in life, you have to take steps, which are risky sometimes.
Fantastic.
But it has not really affected the rest of Africa. It is the immediate neighbors that have those kind of issues.
Fantastic. All right, let's hear from Tabitha Mutena. Good morning, good to see you.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Your Easter, how was it?
Easter's
Did you go to Uhuru Park? I think he's got a new face, new look. You at least being the nominated senator of Nairobi should have been the first one out to go and see what has it been up to as far as pushing up Uhuru Park is concerned after almost 2 years, the closure of Uhuru Park. Well, actually going to 3 almost.
Exactly.
That's a long time.
It's been a good Easter. It's been a good moment, especially with family. You know, when I listen to my good male counterparts, they'll talk about football and apparently, you know, other engagements. But one of the key questions that sometimes we come across as female leaders is that how do you balance between this responsibility and also family? And actually, Easter is one of the moments that we utilize to prioritize family. Look at the young ones; they've just closed school, trying to see how they've been
Just be a bit steady with your mic. I think if you fidget a bit, it goes on. Yeah. Are you, just try?
It's good now.
Right, I'll sort it out, then we'll come back to you.
Okay.
So don't lose your track of thoughts. But in the meantime, let me just put stories on the road as well so that we can comment on them, because I think the health crisis is deepening in this country. And day 2 of a nationwide strike by clinical officers has just aggravated paralysis of health services across public hospitals as patients continue to suffer. A spot check by KTN News in some hospitals revealed unattended patients with very little happening in their health facilities. This as governors accused the striking doctors of causing Kenyans suffering, yet the issue lies with the national government. KMPDU Secretary General Davji Atela, while meeting doctors in Kirinyaga, however, insisted they will press on and that no amount of threats or intimidation will deter them. KTN's Alan Uchanda starts us off.
Elias Njeru has arrived at Makueni Hospital to seek medical attention after he suffered a fracture on his leg early last month. The ongoing doctor strike, coupled with the clinical officers one that began today, however, spells doom for him.
Daktari wenye tulipatana naye, daktari wenye alikuwa ananiambia atanitoa uzi, ameniambia ameenda, lakini kesho atauma, kesho atakuwa na mgomo.
His tribulations mirrors those of Javan Omolo, who brought his expectant sister at Nakuru Level 5 Hospital, but no doctor is on site.
I've just brought my sister here. Anafaa kwenda labor. We've been told we donate blood. Tumeenda kwa room ya donors. The doctors are not around. So like, we are really stressed up. Tunashangaa kwani Kenya yetu inaelekea wapi? Juu if our president amenyamaza. So like, inafaa tulilie nani?
The situation wasn't any different across most public hospitals as the health crisis escalates, doctors vowing to continue staying away from their workstations until their grievances are addressed. At the Kakamega Level 5 Hospital, patients arrive at the facility with little ongoing, even though the hospital management says critical services haven't been paralyzed. Although health is a devolved function, governors argue the issues raised by the medics should be addressed by the national government, and as such, patients should not suffer. Even as KMPDU Secretary General Davji Atela, while meeting doctors in Kirinyaga, accused some county bosses of threatening the striking doctors and that they won't back off.
Haya mambo ya kusema ya kwa dhambi ya serikali kuu ibebwe na watu ambao kwamba wako chini, itakuwa ni dhulma. Mutakuwa mnawadhulumu hawa watu.
Kisikia mgonjwa mmoja amekufa hizi hospitali zangu kwa sababu nyinyi mmeshikiana na wale wengine, kwa sababu hamkuwa hapo, na nyinyi pia mtanilipa, kwa sababu kama wana solidarity na wale ambao na serikali kuu ya makosa yao, hata mimi pia naweza kuwa na solidarity, niwe isilipi mshahara haraka kama wale wenzangu. Kuna magavana hawalipi mishahara hata miezi 6.
Hakuna threats, intimidation ama victimization ambayo itafanya madaktari warudi kazini, ila ni ile kukati chini na kuangalia na kutokea mikakati kamilifu ya kuimplement hiyo CBA. Kwa hivyo hiyo ndio call ambayo tumesema leo.
2 weeks ago, a grueling 7-hour session, spearheaded by Head of Public Service Felix Koskei, broke down again, leaving the crippling health crisis unresolved. The parties agreed to form a 13-member committee, with 4 members from the union, 3 from the Ministry of Health, and the rest from key stakeholders such as the Council of Governors. Alan Wachanda, KTN News.
And Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka now says the Kenya Kwanza regime wants to rig the forthcoming elections by interfering with the National Dialogue Committee reports. Speaking in Mombasa, Kalonzo also reiterated that he will lead the opposition demonstrations if the Kenya Kwanza regime continues with its mission to undermine the bipartisan reports. Our political affairs reporter Emmanuel Cho has more.
In the last day of his 3-day marathon trip to the coastal region, the Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and the DAP Kenya leader Eugene Wamalwa touched base at the Mombasa Governor Abdul Somad Sharif Nasir's office with a message to the Kenya Kwanza government. Kalonzo arguing that the Kenya Kwanza administration was deliberately interfering with the National Dialogue Committee report in a bid to rig the 2027 election.
And when we have a product which can at least help the country move forward, tunaona jama za udanganyifu tena.
We want to tell the Kenya Kwanza government that if they will go on by whichever means to unilaterally form the next IEBC, that IEBC will not be a Kenyan IEBC. It will be a Kenya Kwanza IEBC.
For those of you who are aware, during the last elections as well, our party leaders were very, very key in the support, especially after what happened when IEBC cancelled the elections for Mombasa and Kakamega.
The leaders also threatening to rally their supporters back to the streets if the government continues to scuttle the implementation of the report.
Kama kutakuwa na umuhimu wa Wanakenya, wananchi wa Kenya kurudi kwa maandamano, itakuwa tayari madaktari wametutangulia. Kwa hivyo tunaangalia mambo haya.
And we've heard one of our colleagues, Kimani Uchungwa, saying because bei ya unga imeshuka, kwa hivyo gharama ya maisha imeshuka. One item kama unga kushuka does not mean gharama ya maisha imeshuka.
Similarly, the leaders put the government on notice for failing to end runaway corruption, including one surrounding the subsidized fertilizer.
Fertilizer fake hii, Wakenya wanaiangalia sana. Makusudio na kisha hatimaye itakuwaji. Sisi sio kazi yetu kuambia Ruto awafute kazi ama asiwafute. Wakenya wanaona.
The duo also maintaining that the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya camp was still intact despite the simmering succession battle for the opposition chief who is angling for the AU commission job. The statement coming hours after Odinga, who had just jetted back into the country from the UK and Dubai, calling for calm in the quest to inherit his political base.
Ukileta hiyo fikra ya kugawanya chama kwa msingi ya maeneo, utasambaratisha chama. Nataka ODM ibaki vile iko, the strongest and most organized political party in East and Central Africa.
Emmanuel To, KTN News, Nairobi.
Still on, Kalonzo, he threatens to call for protest after the court suspended the implementation of the NADCO report. The Wiper leader, in a press briefing accompanied by DAP leader, that is Eugene Wamalwa, and their disappointment even as the opposition leader Raila Odinga appears to be short of words. Our reporter Vera Mora tells us more.
Hata kama ni kurudi kwa mitaa, kwa streets, tuko tayari kabisa. Lakini ijulikane sio sisi ambao tunaenda kwa kurudi kwa streets tena demonstrations. Kenya is already on the streets.
Words echoed by Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka with signs that implementation of the document birthed following talks between Azimio la Umoja One Kenya and Kenya Kwanza could be in limbo. This is after the court suspends the implementation of the NADCO report. It has been 8 months since protests were witnessed in the country. What feelings does Kalonzo's speech evoke?
Whatever he says, whatever he proposes, now needs to be ground truth. For example, if he says we need to go back to demonstrations, does he have what it takes to organize demonstrations?
Kalonzo might have started the journey to succeed Azimio leader Raila Odinga's political base since his return to the country on Friday after 10 days away. He has not spoken about the actions taken by the court regarding the negotiations he fought for.
Baba has struck a deal on his future. And his future is around AU and being the chairperson of that commission. An executive role that he needs to play over the next couple of years, 7 years, longer than a presidential term. Does that leave a gap in Azimio? Obviously it does.
Democratic Action Party leader Eugene Wamalwa has also faulted the government.
They came with dangerous cards hidden under the table. And I believe they have started playing those dangerous cards in parliament through delay and in courts through derailment that is now happening.
Kikuyu MP and leader of Majority Kimani Ichung'wah has confirmed that the National Dialogue Commission report will be implemented amid its doubt over court's injunction.
The NADCO report as adopted by Parliament will be implemented, and we have all the goodwill to implement that report in the manner it was passed.
The emerging issue now is whether the opposition leader Raila Odinga ignored the bipartisan talk to push on the AU job campaigns and indeed maintain a good relationship with President William Ruto for his future benefits. Vera Mura, KTN News.
All right, opposition leaders the alleged plans to influence 2027 elections. Kalonzo, he says Kenya Kwanza sabotaging NADCO report. This is what the news was telling us. And he says we cannot accept the push to exclusively select the IBC commissioners. And if they do so, then we are ready to go back to the streets. So what is really happening as far as this NADCO report is happening? And he continues to say, we want them, quote unquote, we want them to know that we are aware. We are aware of a plot. The report is now awaiting legislation, but unfortunately, the intention is to derail the implementation of the report. We cannot accept their push to exclusively select the IBC commissioners. And if they do so, then we are ready to go back to the streets. This is what Kalonzo Musyoka had mentioned. And of course, you can look also at today's editorial cartoon inside the People Daily, the forgotten victims of Maandamano. Still, we have them calling for another Maandamano, but we can see the gentleman there with a cast on his leg, and of course with a catapult. Hospital bill has not been paid. Rest in peace, Maandamano victims. Who is having the last laugh? This is the probing question, and that is where we stand at as far as that report is concerned. But let's go back to Friday, and I want just to rope in Otieno Molo to just tell us the latest development regarding that. Was it unlawful from the beginning, NADCO? Was it also up to fail as far as the Constitution is concerned, the law is concerned? We saw them coming up with this particular committee, and then they went to the House to try and put a legal framework to accommodate the particular committee that from the first, or from the beginning, from the onset, was not constitutional. Otieno Molo, let's just begin from there. But it will be nice also to just comment on this editorial cartoon regarding the Maandamano victims. Now that we have calls for another, we can hear from them as Azimio leaders. What do you have to say?
Thank you. The judgment regarding the NADCO report, I think it's curious, but it finds convergence with the interest of Kenya Kwanza. Why is it curious? First, and to clarify, I have not read the judgment, but I've read excerpts of reference to it, especially in the media. And what I've read suggests that it's not the entire report that was stopped by the court, but the part that recommends audit of the last elections, leaving the rest of the recommendations and the report intact. And that's where we start. And then it continues to stop the adoption of the report insofar as that is concerned. Now, that first would be impractical because the report was already unanimously adopted by both the Senate and the National Assembly. So it is not possible to stop its adoption now because that is in the past. What can be dealt with are the consequential legislation and amendments to the Constitution that might arise from that. Number two, it's curious because if you read carefully Article 165(3)(d), the jurisdiction of the court is to interpret the constitutionality of any legislation or action. And as far as Parliament is concerned, that usually means that the courts must fold their hands, await Parliament in its discretion to execute its function. And only after it is done, then the interpretation of whether that action or legislation was lawful or not can come in. Courts are expected to restrain themselves from interfering with the normal work of Parliament, just as much as Parliament is expected to restrain itself from interfering with the courts when they are interpreting the constitutionality of laws or legislation. So to come and stop Parliament at a time that the joint sitting of the Senate and the National Assembly has not even begun to discuss the report, has not made any clear recommendation, amount to interference with parliamentary work under Article 94, 95, and 96. And courts ought not to do that. Thirdly, it must be understood that the audit that was recommended by the report is an audit that is expected to be had anyway, routinely, after every general election. If you look at Article 81 of the Constitution, and this needs to be understood, because there are those who fear, and I think that's the premise of the suit, there are those who fear that, when you go into the audit, then you'll go into the servers, then you will now, start declaring someone else to have won the presidential election or not, and that would cause problems, okay? Now, it is expected, and I invite you to look at Article 81 E, especially Roman 4 and 5. What is expected of every general election? It's a free and fair elections which are, under 4, transparent, under 5, administered in an impartial, neutral, efficient, accurate, and accountable manner. At any time after any election is held, and it's not just the presidential election, any Kenyan is entitled to ask the IEBC to demonstrate, yes, whether the election was actually efficient, accurate, accountable, and transparent. To do that, it amounts to essentially an audit of that election. So an audit of an election is one that does not even require the NADCO report, it does not even require any adoption. It is something already ingrained in the Constitution. And it is something that ought to be done, not so much even for the past, but for the future, because you must audit, see where we went, you got it wrong, where you got it right, so that future elections can go on without hitch. Remember, even this last election had so many hitches, despite the decision of the Supreme Court. And that one, any right-thinking person must acknowledge. And that's why previously in 2017, again, for those very hitches, the election was nullified. So there's nothing to fear about the audit. And to say, therefore, that you cannot proceed to audit is essentially to question the Constitution itself, because the Constitution actually implies that. But why I'm saying it's curious is why would Justice Chepkwony just isolate the part of the audit in terms of the report? The report is one document. If you have an issue with it and you want to, to do away with it, you do away with all of it. You can't start nitpicking, because then you make even the work of Parliament very difficult, because it won't know now which paragraph is it that you can touch and which one can't you touch on. So you're working on eggshells. You're working on eggshells. Now, at the end of the day, it does find convergence with Kenya Kwanza. Why? First, because you will remember their initial reluctance to engage on that question of the audit. I was in the first NADCO team, and they expressly and flatly refused to even have that discussion. That is why the first round of talks collapsed. In the second team, which Senator Omogeni was part of, they, I think, reluctantly agreed to discuss it, although it didn't go into any detail. So a decision that seems to stop that finds convergence with them. Secondly, you'll remember that when Opio and I and the ODM team named our 3 representatives to the audit team, there was no corresponding action on the other side. There was just a studious silence.
They were putting up a dream team so that they have to be strategizing.
It is that kind of delay is a pattern in terms of their action on NADCO. But the bottom line is, without good faith, and that we said in the first team, and that was my comment in Parliament when we were discussing this report, that without good faith, the NADCO report would go nowhere. I am not sure there has been a demonstration of good faith even up to now. And that includes, I am part of the Justice Committee team, and we were given 45 days. I think we are past halfway, and we are yet to meet to even discuss the first issue. And given the kind of issues that are in that NADCO report, that alone demonstrates that there's no urgency, that there may not be good faith. Yes.
All right, let's hear from Okongo Mogeni, who has been part of this team as well. As we can see, finally, you're asking for a Kenya Kwanza team. It's here, led by Cecilia Ngetich, Dr. Linda Musumba, and then Ndegwa Home. Cecilia Ngetich was in the county government, isn't it? If you may remember.
I know very little.
Yeah. I don't know if she was a CAC or maybe she was an MC at some point. Right? There is your team you've been waiting for. Now that it is here, Otiende says now, this is a delaying tactics, but they formed a formidable team.
Yeah,
so what do you have to say about the latest development as well?
I can see the two lawyers there, Dr. Linda Musumba. I think that's...
and Ndegwa Home?
And then those are two very distinguished legal minds. Maybe they have been put there to match the skills of Attorney General Emeritus Amos Wako and Judith Pareno. But having
Judith Pareno, she's a lawyer as well?
Judith Pareno is a lawyer.
She is. Okay.
Yeah, that was our classmate actually.
Oh, she was your classmate.
She was our classmate. She's a lawyer of repute. I think having been involved in this article, one thing I can for sure confirm, just to follow up on what Otiende Amola said, the issue of audit of our elections, last elections, really rattles the UDA brigade. I don't know what triggers the fear, but even as we were deliberating on that issue in NADCO, you could see the discomfort from the UDA representatives. I don't know what is the fear about. I don't know whether this audit may lead to the leakage of the hot air that was being referred by Chief Justice Martha Koome. But I thought it's good for the country that we do a comprehensive audit of the last elections, and we build on it for the future so that we can again create confidence on the electoral process for Kenyans without addressing the issues of elections. Even if we speak about NADCO Debal for eternity, we will not create an atmosphere that will build confidence on our democracy. We need to go to the depth of the issues that were at play during the 2022 general elections, then we can build for the future. The same thing with the IEBC. I don't know why there should be discomfort in reconstituting a selection panel that will put in place an IEBC, especially the top level commissioners that enjoy confidence of the two sides, those who represent the Azimio and those who represent UDA. Why would you be having a problem with picking professionals, people representing several credible professional entities like accountants, the lawyers, religious bodies, and you do away with the Public Service Commission, which has a lot of control from the executive. I think that fear, for me, is an indication that you look at the wave of change that is sweeping across Africa. Maybe somebody somewhere feels if you let go IBC, the ground may not be very favorable for the executive come to 2027. That's why I agree fully with Eugene Wamalwa that we cannot take anything less than having an IEBC that represents the aspirations of all Kenyans. This idea of saying there is, a court order that wants to maintain status quo, that should be a no for Kenyans. And just making a reference to that cartoon for Maandamano, the blame game should not be that Kalonzo is calling for Maandamano, Debal. What we should be debating is, does the Kenyan Constitution give power to Kenyans to go out to the streets, picket, demonstrate? Is that a globally accepted way of registering they sent with the government? The answer is yes. You see, even the news on Saturday, I think it was either Saturday or Sunday, I saw demonstrators gathering outside a hotel in New York where Biden, Obama, and Clinton were having dinner. There was nothing like people being maimed or injured by the police. The police were just watching and maintaining law and order. You saw Israel. There were demonstrators demonstrating against the government of Benjamin Netanyahu. You didn't see police respond with excessive force to beat innocent, peaceful demonstrators out of the streets. So we should really make an emphasis that the police should understand that when Kenyans come out to demonstrate, they are exercising their constitutional right, and we urge the international community, the IPOA, to take action against any police officers that injure peaceful demonstrators at the bar. And then finally, I think Parliament should assert its independence, its authority in legislative process. I respect the constitutional mandate of courts to check the excesses of Parliament. But in this case, we have not even considered one legislation from the list of proposed legislative actions from NADICO. So how can you inject Parliament in anticipation? I think the right procedure, Debal, should be Parliament should wait for Parliament to deliberate on the proposed legislations or any possible constitutional amendment. Once we have enacted these laws, if we act beyond our constitutional mandate, or if we pass any law that will be deemed to be unconstitutional, then the judiciary can step in. But if you inject Parliament in anticipation, that jurisprudence that I'll find fairly surprising myself.
So I ask myself, which Parliament? Looking at Taifa Leo, what it says, bunge limeenda, raia, mujipange. So when you're talking about Parliament, which Parliament are you talking about? As we take a short break right now, we know time is running down on us. This 7 o'clock on the nose. We want to take a short break. When we circle back, we shall hear from Tabitha on those reactions so far on the issues that are put on the table about Tino Molo and Okongo Mogeni also. And also pick the brains of Danson Mungatana as well. We take a short break. You're watching Standpoint here on Morning Prime.